Hi guys, I'm going to do these wee voiceover videos for your next four lessons, probably the rest of the lessons that we're going to get uploaded to Google Classroom and Satchel, just because it's a wee bit better than just me uploading the PowerPoint and saying to you, right, use this PowerPoint to do the worksheets that you need to cover for each lesson. So hopefully this makes it a wee bit more like being in school where I can explain things to you hopefully a bit better and give you examples of things. Yeah, just hopefully this makes it a little bit easier for you. Also, the beauty of doing it like this is that you can pause and like listen back to things again, kind of like recording a lesson, I suppose. So let me know what you think if this is handy for you. If you don't like it, you can tell me that as well. But hopefully, yeah, going forward, it will make things a little bit easier for you because I know how difficult remote learning can be at the best of times. So what I'm going to do is you'll be able to see my screen, and I am essentially just going to talk you through the PowerPoint that you hopefully have already looked at, because at this point lesson 4 Rivers is already uploaded to Google Classroom and Satchel. But hopefully this time me going through it as well will make it a little bit easier for you. So we'll talk you through everything, and I'll explain like what it looks like in the booklet. I've got the booklet here with me as well. Maybe you don't have the booklet at home with you. That's the other thing I wanted to say. Maybe your booklet is in school. So you'll see that I always upload a electronic version of the booklet so that if you don't have it at home with you, you can at least look at what it looks like, on your phone or on your computer. But even if you can't, like, I know how difficult it can be to actually do worksheets on the computer, because yes, I upload them and they're PowerPoints, and the idea behind that is that you can add like little text boxes and type answers in and things like that. That's still kind of hard to do unless you're really lucky and you have a printer and you can print the worksheets out. That would be the easiest. But even if you can't do any of that, even just going through these PowerPoints or watching this video will make this a lot easier for you. Right, so there's another 3 or 4 lessons left for Rivers. So the reason we're up to lesson 4 is because we've done lesson 1, 2 and 3 in school. So this is where we would have been at this point. And then after we do the next few lessons remotely, I'm going to try and attempt to do a little quiz or test with you, because you know how after we finish a topic we need to do a little test on it. But we'll see what that looks like after we've finished, and after you give me some feedback and stuff on how like you're getting on with your remote learning. Right, let's crack on then. So at this point you have looked at river processes. So lesson 3 was river processes, and that's basically like the things which happen in a river. So we looked at erosion, we looked at transportation, and we looked at deposition. And the analogy that we used for that was the 3 clowns, and they symbolise what actually happens within the river. Now this next bit links into lesson 3 because these are the landforms. Hopefully you can see my mouse. These are the landforms which are created because of erosion, because of transportation and deposition. So in the exam, these 2 things go side by side. There's 3 landforms that you need to know about, so that's in your learning intention there. You need to know about waterfalls, meanders, and then floodplains and levees. They are together, that's one landform, floodplain and levee. So it says there you need to be able to use annotated diagrams to explain how waterfalls, meanders, and floodplains and levees are formed, and identify these river landforms on maps and aerial photographs. That is really important. That links into lesson 5, and I'll do a separate video for it. Below is a diagram which shows the river landscape features in a drainage basin. So you'll hopefully recognise your drainage basin at this point. You can see your watershed, you can see the mouth, you can see the source, and this is annotated to a certain extent as well. So what I have got, oh, you can't see that behind me, is examples of what these 3 features look like in real life. So if you didn't know what a waterfall looked like, there's an example of one. So waterfall in the diagram is right there, and then that's one I've pulled off the internet. the next two are meanders and floodplains and levees. So here is a separate diagram that I've pulled off the internet, and you can see them on the diagram here as well. So what you should notice at this point is that these features, these landforms, are found in different parts of the river. And you'll hopefully remember a few lessons back that we split the river into 3 courses. Can you remember what they are called? So we had upper, middle, and lower course, and things look different on those 3 courses of the river. So it's the same for the features. So you would not technically get a waterfall close to the mouth. A waterfall is found in the upper course of the river. Same goes then for meanders, and same for your floodplains and levees. So we'll look at them in a bit more detail now. Let me move me again, make me smaller. So this is basically summarising what I've just said. Whoa, okay, hold on, I'm still getting the hang of this. Right, so the table shows the main processes and landforms which occur in the different courses of the river. So that's what I was just saying about upper, middle, and lower. The landforms occur due to the processes which you have learnt about in the last lesson. So here you can see upper course, middle course, and lower course, and there's a wee reminder of what they actually look like, whether they're really steep or whether they're quite gentle, and we call that a gradient. The main processes, so that's your clowns, is it erosion, is it transportation, or is it deposition? So you can see that those 3 processes happen separately in those 3 courses. And then the landforms come because of the processes. So if you have erosion happening, that will result in a waterfall. If you have transportation happening in the middle course, that's going to lead to meanders. And if you have deposition happening in the lower course of the river, that's going to lead to these things. Okay, so that's a really good overview of basically the whole picture at this point. Your course, the process, and then what that looks like as a landform as well. Right, so the first one in more detail then. I don't think you need to write anything down at this point. I'm pretty sure this is all just like notes. Yeah, so basically everything I just read to you is in your notes like this. You don't need to write anything down in this page. Oh, and by the way, this is page 25 if you need it from what I've uploaded, or if you have the booklet in front of you. So that's all there, what I just read. Yeah, so the first landform is rivers. I think this requires a little bit of missing information. Yep, so like we do in class, there's a few missing words which you get from the board. So you can pause me and I'll move me out of the way so you can see that. You can write those in. So these 4 bullet points are a really nice step-by-step to explain how a waterfall is formed, and that's what you need to do in the exam. So the question will be, pick one river landform and explain how it is formed. Or it could give you the landform. It could say waterfalls are found in the upper course of a river, explain how they are formed. 4 marks. So that is what you need to do. I'm not going to read that to you step by step because you can all read, and a few more really good slides and stuff coming up which shows it in a better view, I suppose. So think about it like a step by step, like what happens first, then what comes next, and then what, and then what. The things which I have underlined are like the main things that you need to include in each step, things which will get you marks, because they are showing that you know how to use hydraulic action and attrition and abrasion in an answer. They're showing that you know like specific geographical terminology. So the things which are underlined, the words which you need to write in your notes, are specifically the ones that you need to remember to get the marks. Right, so that's fair enough. If you are a learner who works by reading, then that will be happy. You'll be happy enough to use it like that. However, if you're a visual learner like me, there is a nice diagram. Yeah, so this diagram is really good. This is 2 slides across, which shows you all of the things which we just outlined, but like in an annotated diagram. You can study that if you think that will help you. It's certainly something that I would learn better from. This diagram, I think, yeah, this is the diagram which you need to put the information in there. So anything that's missing there, oh, sorry, it's this one, tell lies. Move me out of the way. Going too fast. So this page, or this slide, see how those are numbered? Those are the step-by-step pieces of information for how a waterfall is created. You are supposed to put them in this diagram. Sorry, I was telling lies a minute ago. So number 1 is going to go in box number 1. So it says a waterfall is formed when there's alternating layers of hard and soft rock. And you can see that in number 1. Okay, again, I'm not going to read all that through to you because you can read yourself. But that's what the instructions above there are saying. There's 2 videos at the top that you can click on. I'm not going to click on them because you can find those in the PowerPoint yourself. They're really good. Watch those videos as well as writing in those pieces of information for the diagram. Okay. Just before we move on to the next landform, again, I have bolded the words or the things which are the most important part of each step. Okay, so alternating hard and soft rock. That is the main thing that you need to remember to start off your answer for how a waterfall is formed. Then your erosion starts to come in and what that looks like and what that causes, and then there's more erosion. So all of those bold words are essentially the things that you need to remember. So if you're ever summarizing this stuff, the bold words that you need to include. All right. So again, there's another wee diagram which may help you. Another way of looking at it as well. Do watch those videos, by the way, because like we're saying that hard and soft rock happens, the water flows over, the hard rock obviously doesn't get eroded as quickly as the soft rock, and that's kind of hard to imagine. So if you watch the video, you can see that happening, which is really handy. So that is, oops, sorry, that's my dog. Sorry about that. Choice of working from home. Right, where were we? So we're now on to landform 2, which is a meander. There's a lovely aerial view of what a meander actually looks like. A meander is basically just a bend in the river. There's a few points of what it is. So it's found in the middle of the course of the river, where there's a bit more energy and there's more water. Gradient in the middle course of the river is gentle, so in other words, it's a bit more flat. So it says there lateral erosion, which is this way, so lateral is like sideways. That kind of erosion will start to now widen the channel, so that's where you start to get the widest parts of the river. It also says that the river channel has deepened now, so that just means in comparison to further up the course near the source. A larger river channel means that there is less friction, so the water flows faster. Right, so you don't need to do anything with that in terms of your notes. So now we're on page 27, which looks like this. There's a little bit of note taking at the top and then a few nice diagrams down below. So next slide is where you're going to get your missing words. So at the top there is some information about a meander where you have to fill in the missing words which come from this slide. Again, I'm not going to read this all to you. I'm going to explain what it is and how I want you to think about a meander. Now, I'll be honest with you, a meander is probably the more difficult feature to explain in the exam because there's basically 2 things happening in a meander. So if you ignore all the text at the top of the screen and you look at the diagrams down below, so you have a cross-sectional view of a meander and then you have a bird's eye view of meander on the right. So your bird's eye view is basically looking at it from above, like that picture we looked at on that slide. So you can see the bends in the river. Now, the bird's eye view is quite good because you can see these arrows within the bends of the meander, and what those arrows represent is where the water is flowing fastest as it like moves around the channel. So these parts that the arrows are found in the channel would be known as the outside of the bend. So what you can basically say before you start to look at any of this stuff about meanders is that water is fastest on the outside of a river bend. So if there's faster water flow, there's going to be more energy, so there's going to be more erosion. So that then leads to what you can see in the left-hand side diagram. So if you look at this part of the diagram, it is deeper, and it's deeper because that is where the water is flowing fastest, and it's flowing fastest, therefore there's more energy, so there's more erosion, and more erosion means it's basically going to get wider, which you can see at this part of the diagram, and it's going to get deeper as well. So it's shown really well in this diagram as well. That is essentially what this top part of this slide is saying. Now, whenever I'm going through this, I always try and teach it in like approaching it from two sides. So you can see that I've done that with the letters A and B. So A, we'll start with A, is the shallow side, and B is the deeper side. And you can see that on those diagrams that I've given you at the bottom. So you can see A is, what's A? A is the shallower side, which is, you know, away from the arrows. B is the deeper side, which is, yes, it's on the faster side of the arrows here. And then that translates directly to the left-hand side diagram. So I'm not going to move my mouse because every time I move it, that little thing pops up and then you can't see. So if you look at the diagram on the left-hand side, you can see at the bottom left-hand corner is A. And if you look at the yellow box at the top, A means shallow. Then on the right hand side of the brown diagram, you can see B, and then B means the deeper side. So that's just what that means whenever you see me referring to side A and side B. And I split it into the deep side and the shallow side. So if you were to read through those couple of paragraphs, I'm basically saying what is happening at each side. So the deep side is where there's the most energy. So I've said the water flows fastest. A few fancy pieces of information. Causing vertical erosion, that's really fancy. So if you were to write that in the exam, I would be like wowed. Not only are you recognizing that more energy equals more erosion, but you've recognized that vertical erosion is specifically happening, and that results in this deepening of the channel. So you're basically saying there's more energy, so there's more vertical erosion, so there's more depth. And then this is something that is a result of that. So creating a river cliff on the bank, and you can see that really well on this wee diagram. So a few nice wee points to include there. Fast water, more vertical erosion, more deepening equals a cliff. Do you know how whenever you're like, if you're ever in Ballygally Beach, and then if you walk up to the very top of the beach, there's like this little stream that flows out from the castle underneath the road, and there's always like a fast part of that wee stream, and if you stand near it, all the sand always like breaks down into the water and then like flows away. Whenever I'm walking the dog, I always like go and like stand on it and make it fall in. That is essentially what you're seeing there. That is like a river cliff, where you see those little like drop off points, those little cliffs in that stream, Ballygally Beach, is essentially where the water is flowing fastest, and it's causing that cliff to start to overhang. So that's a good way to remember that. Right, so the opposite of all of that then is on the shallow side. So the opposite things happen on the opposite side. So it's not fastest, it's slowest. Erosion isn't happening, deposition is happening. Deposition is the opposite of erosion because like the material is just laid down because there's no energy to carry it. What else? So it says opposite this, water flows slowly. Let me move me. Because it doesn't have enough energy. So it deposits material heaviest first. Blah blah blah. So yeah, this next bit there, it leads to a lopsided cross-sectional view, creating a slip-off slope. A slip-off slope is essentially a fancy word for a beach. So if you were to look, hopefully this diagram has one. Right, you can kind of see it there in this meander. So because there's deposition or depositing happening on this side of the river bend, that essentially is a little beach. Like you get little beaches on the slow side of a river bend because the energy is not there to carry that material any further. It just like lays it down. So if you were to draw a meander from above on the outside fast side, you would be able to say, right, that's where it's deepest, that's where it's fastest, all the energy is there, all the erosion's happening, so it's deep and it's, you know, like, yeah. And then on the opposite side, you would draw a little beach, and all of that eroded material that's taken from this part ends up on the beach side or the inside of another part of the river, essentially. So when I say that this is the most difficult part of the river features, that's why. It's because there's so much happening with the meander. You have to split it into two, the deep side and the shallow side, and I'll show you a wee way to remember that later on. So here's another diagram. You might find it useful. This is, does this go in your notes? Not yet anyway. So this is essentially summarising what's happening on both sides of the meander from a bird's eye view. So at this point, all you really need to do is have that information in this part of your booklet, which is page 27. Then you have those nice diagrams at the bottom. You don't need to do anything to them, just need to refer to them. So the next thing I'm going to do is this page. But before you get to that page, like, there's just more diagrams there. Like, I've just pulled these off Google. Like, some of them are better than others. You might like that diagram better than that one, so it's just a bit of choice for you. So this is the activity that follows the meander notes, essentially. Now, this is a really good task because it splits what happens with a meander into those two categories really well. So it says at the top, place the following words into the correct side of the table below. This will help you to organise what is happening at both the inside and outside of a meander. When answering this question in the exam, split your answer into two parts. So in other words, like, write two paragraphs. Talk about the inside and then the outside separately, and include all of the following points to fully describe and explain the formation of a meander. And if you look at the bottom of this page, you can see it on the screen actually. Now you have to put it into that written answer. So essentially what you're doing at the top of this page is writing a plan, including all of these buzzwords which are going to get you ticks or marks to be able to answer this question at the bottom. So this is exactly what it would look like in the exam. Only I've, like said, used the table above to help you write the answer. Yeah, try to use as many of the words as you can. You should be able to. But as I say, if you just split it into two paragraphs, like whenever you're doing this bit at the bottom, write like paragraph 1 inside, paragraph 2 outside, or you could call it A, which if you look at the diagram is the inside, and then B is the fastest, it's the outside. And if you're not able to do that, you can refer back to the notes, which you've just done on the previous page. So we've split it into inside and outside there, or you could like nip back and look at it here. This view is essentially what you are doing on this activity, only I've wrote it as a table. So you can see I have A and B, and that just translates to the same information that you can see on the screen. So you can pause me, have a go at doing that, and do one even better, have a go at putting it into a written answer at the bottom, because you will be asked to do this top activity in the exam. That's just like a way of you remembering it. And whenever you go to do the actual exam question, like at the bit at the bottom, you could draw out this really roughly above as like a plan to organise. So what I had said at the top there, this helps you to organise the information, because like I said before, there's so much stuff happening with the formation of a meander that it becomes really confusing. And actually, a wee tip for doing this, whenever you fill in one side of this, the word that goes on the right hand side is essentially the opposite of what you've just written on the left. So for example, if you put outside here in B, the opposite of that is going to be inside. Then cross them off as you go along so that you're not getting confused. Cliff is the feature which was formed here on the outside, the fastest part. So I'm going to put that in B. And then the opposite feature was this slip off that little beach. So try and do it like that, like opposites of each other. Right, I'm going to show it now, and you can pause me and have a wee go at doing that. Right, third and final landform then. This one's quite easy. And then where we're at in our notes is this page, page 29. So you can see we're on the third landform. It's called floodplains and levees. And like I say, these are the same landform, these act as one. So in the diagram that you can see on the screen, what we mean by the floodplain, you might remember this from whenever we were doing the very first part of the rivers topic, where you have a diagram of a floodplain, or sorry, a drainage basin, and you need to label all the parts, like the source and the mouth and the tributaries and the confluences. The floodplain is essentially just like the land around the river, and it's called a floodplain because it's the area of land which would flood if the river bursts its bank. In this diagram, you can kind of see that, like, it's all that flat land. So if this river, like following a storm, overflowed, it would fill all of that land. And that's essentially all it is. It's an area of flat land which would be flooded if the river flooded. The levees are these little green mounds along the river channel. And I'll give you a clue as to what these are. They are a depositional feature. In other words, they're created because of the river depositing or laying down its load. And the reason that they are built is because every time the river does overflow, any like material or load in that river will be deposited along the river channel. So over time, flood after flood after flood, you start to get these little like walls or mounds, known as levees, and it's a depositional feature, essentially, is what you need to know. So again, these are your answers for the notes. Missing words. Ones in bold, I assume, are the things that you need to fill in. Yeah, the words in bold. Fill in your missing words. And then again, I've used letters. You can see this on the screen better. I've used letters to show you the different parts of the floodplain and levee diagram. So if you look below the diagram on page 29, you can see that there's like different parts of this diagram which need to be labelled. So it says use the definitions below to help you to label letters A to D in that diagram. So the first one is river channel, and in other words, where the river flows. Which letter is that on this diagram? This is just to see if you can make sense of the diagram, and like, you know, you can picture that this is you looking down the river if you've cut it in half. So the answer to that one would be C, because this is the river channel in here. And next one would be the bluff. Now, if you read that top diagram, it should say that in the top paragraph. It should say something about a bluff in there. The remains of higher land where the rest has been eroded have A on here, so it's everything but the floodplains. All of this higher land is a bluff, and then on the other side as well. The floodplain then would be all of this area from that side of the arrow to that side of the arrow, which would be B. And then the last one is the levees. So you can see one side of the river's levee has the D on it, and then that would be one of the other levees as well. And that's essentially it. So in the exam, if it gives you the choice, and you like floodplains and levees, you can choose it and explain that this is what happens. Or it might give you the diagram and it'll be like, this is a floodplain and resulting levees. How does this happen? The main points here is that it's essentially caused whenever the river overflows again and again and again. So any stuff, any material, alluvium, silt, anything like that in the river is going to be laid down, and it's going to be laid down just on the banks of the river. So like all of the really heavy stuff that's in the river is going to be set down first because it's heavy, and then all the lighter, smaller stuff, it will be carried a little bit further. So that's why it's creating this like little hill, this like gradual slope. So all of the stuff mostly gets deposited there, and then some stuff can be travelled further. And that's it, I think. Yeah. So this page is another way of looking at this. It's still the floodplains and levees, only I have done this as like a step by step, or a step 1, step 2, step 3, and you have a worksheet which goes with that. So all you need to do on that, which is page 25, is fill in those little navy boxes. So all of those information pieces go in here, Again, you might prefer to look at it this way if you learn better like that. It's just there for another option. Then on page 31, before I go to that, on page 31 in your booklet, you have a page of essentially just like example questions of what that might look like in the exam. You can have a go at doing that. You can pause me now and try doing those and use the notes that you've just done to help you do that. And then the last slide of this PowerPoint and what we would do in class, if we were in class, is essentially what I would like you to do as a homework style activity. So what I have created for this lesson 4, is I have done a quiz. Now in that quiz, there's going to be questions about 2 lessons. So it's going to be on this stuff, which is the river landforms. So this bottom bullet point, the formation of the 3 river landforms, waterfalls, meanders, and your floodplains and levees. And there's also going to be these questions about the processes that you find in a river. So erosion, transportation, deposition. So like, what are the kinds of erosion that you get? Remember that we split that up, or we looked at that as a acronym. We called it CHAA. So CHAAA. Transportation. So there's different ways in which rocks can be transported in the river. What's it called whenever they roll along the bottom, like a tractor would? What's it called when they bounce? What's it called when they like are suspended in the water because they're really light? And deposition. So what was that? That was like, what causes deposition basically. So that's what this quiz, if you click on that link, it'll take you straight to the quiz, or you can just see it in Google Classroom. That is essentially your homework, which I'd like you to do for the next lesson, it says. So you'll already know by now that I'm setting these lessons in accordance to when you are scheduled to have geography. So I think it's Friday is the next time you're scheduled for geography. So I've done that as a due date for Friday then. And that's it. There's obviously other worksheets in your booklet for lesson 4 there. You can do those if you want, but I mean, like, all those other activities that you're doing plus this quiz is plenty of stuff to do for lesson 4. And then you might have seen this. This is what we would have done if we were in school. So we can demonstrate those features, the waterfall, the meanders, and the floodplains and levees, using Play-Doh. You can see there in a picture, that's one I've done before. That's somebody who has made a waterfall, and they've used yellow to show like erosion happening. So erosion happens like in that area and then around the sides as well. So that's, I mean, if you have Play-Doh at home, that's like a nice wee revision activity that you can do. Otherwise, we'll do that when we get back to class. We're allowed to use Play-Doh. And that's it, folks. So hopefully this was useful for you. I quite like doing this because it feels like I'm just in the classroom teaching. And hopefully it helps you understand these things a little bit more, because I know how hard it is to just like go through a PowerPoint that I've uploaded for you. It's not really that great, to be honest. So if you've got any questions or anything, or any feedback, send me a wee message on Satchel or Google Classroom. And yeah, be good. Happy home learning, and I will hopefully get your next wee voiceover video of a lesson done in time for Friday, so that like you can just watch the video instead of like going through the lesson, because hopefully, or probably by this point, you've already done this stuff. Well, you should have anyway. So yeah, that's it. I'll catch up with you later. Oh my god, how do I stop this? Bye.